Welcome to Steering Committee Monthly Meeting number 5. We have a pretty routine agenda that happens every steering committee. You can track all the steering committee members and previous notes, video recordings, and transcripts in the steering committee README. But there's a demo happening today. So after the normal steering committee agenda items, there will be a demo from the Cray Search team led by Luna out of SIG Documentations, which will be a Doc 2.0 update on the migration work from Gitbook to Hugo and some other changes that have been happening in SIG documentation. But without further ado, I'll hand it over to Anil to get us going. I'll just be taking notes in the background.
Thanks, Tyler. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining the meeting. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can all be on the same page. So as Tyler said, typically what we do in these calls is we review any feedback from the community about how things are going with the open development project in general. Any sort of grievances or conflicts, this is the great time to bring it up. And then we look at the projects list. So we look at all the projects that are in progress or are prioritized for future development, and we make sure that if there's feedback about the priorities of those projects or any updates that people want to share, this is a good time to do that. Keep it fairly high level because we have individual SIGs and work groups for detailed discussions on those projects as well. And then we open it up to questions. So that's typically what we follow. One thing I realized, and this is based on the last several meetings that we've had over the last few months, for the steering committee, one thing I realized is that the discussions, GitHub discussions, which is basically, usually governance proposals, those come up pretty frequently between these steering committee meetings. So it's something that we end up talking about. So I think it makes sense to make it part of the regular agenda. And unless there's any objections to that, I think we should just include it in this list of things. Any questions about any of that? Before we dig into the individual bullet points here. Cool, take that as a no. Okay, so let's start with any feedback from the communities. Does anybody have any feedback about how things are going? Any positive or negative things to share, constructive or otherwise feedback from the community? Cool. Yeah, I think overall things are going pretty well. We've had a fair number of SIGs and work groups running pretty regularly, and appreciate the participation and as well as the leadership that many people from the community have shown towards many of these meetings. So, hopefully people are not shy about reporting any issues, but if there are no issues, then it's awesome. It's great that we're able to run these pretty smoothly and not have a huge amount of overhead or conflicts, and huge kudos to Tyler for running a lot of these meetings, as well as a few people from the community for running the meetings, as well as for documenting all the notes. Very detailed documentation for all the work groups and the SIGs in GitHub. So appreciate all the work there. Cool. Second on the list is to typically review the projects list and look at whether things have changed or any updates that people want to share. So here's the projects list, and typically the priority of this is top to bottom. And if things have the same priority, you can look at them in terms of the state of where the project is. So in terms of what's the most active right now is obviously GPU support, and this is an effort that's happening across the board, across many different verticals within the Akash community. So obviously there's a huge amount of effort in the core team, primarily led by Arthur on our side, to support GPUs. And right now, we obviously have GPU support in the testnet that is available for people to use. The next big milestone that Arthur is working on is to support being able to set up a single provider with different GPU models. So the way the testnet today runs is that if you want to set up a provider, you'll typically set it up with only one type of NVIDIA GPU. And it's not that you cannot set up a mixed provider. It's just that there is no way for tenants to indicate which GPU they would like to deploy on when there is a provider with multiple GPU types, multiple NVIDIA GPU types in it. So what Arta is working on is supporting something called GPU attributes within the SDL spec, so that tenants can then say, if there's a provider that has a mix of Tesla V100s, NVIDIA V100s, A100s, and 3090s, being able to say, I specifically want to deploy on a 3090 and not on the A100, and be able to get lower pricing for that within the same provider is something that's being worked on. Outside of that, we have work happening in the clients to support GPUs, as well as support the testnet, as well as support these attributes in the SDL spec once Arthur's changes are done. So all of that is going to happen in the next couple of weeks. And then separate from that, all of that, we've been very actively working on coming up with a comprehensive incentivized testnet for GPUs. So the incentivized testnet, and is going to be probably, I don't know, like I wasn't here for the last two testnets, but I think this one's fairly comprehensive. So I don't know how it stacks up against the previous ones, but essentially what we're going to have is we're going to have two high-level phases for the testnet. And the way we have structured this is that the first phase is kind of going to build the things needed for the second phase. So our goal is to use the first phase to incentivize two groups of people, incentivize people that are capable of setting up providers with GPUs on them, so that we have a fair number of GPU providers available in phase two. And then the second group of people we're going to incentivize in phase one is going to be people that can build SDLs with the various AI models. And so the overall thinking here is phase one would build all that inventory of providers as well as templates. And then phase two, people would use those providers and those templates to run various benchmarking measurements for various AI models on the GPUs that are available. And so the overall goal for this is obviously primarily to test all the code changes that have happened within the testnet before we upgrade mainnet and support all of these in the mainnet. But a secondary goal is to generate buzz for Akash. So generate buzz for Akash and make it sort of make it well known that Akash is a prime player in the AI space. I mean, we obviously get a lot of traction already as being a significant player in the AI infrastructure space. But what we're hoping is that all the benchmarking efforts that happen as part of this testnet, this will result in some really high quality marketing content that we can then take and publish through various marketing channels. And that should generate a huge amount of demand as well as buzz for Akash in general. So that's the general thinking. Each of these two phases have specific tasks that are part of those phases. And this document calls out all the details of those tasks. Broadly, they're setting up a provider, building these SDLs for various AI models, and then running benchmarking using standard TensorFlow convoluted neural network benchmarking reference applications, and then deploying just general AI models, and will provide guidance on what these AI models are, but people are open to setting up other ones as well. So that's the high level of what's planned for this incentivized testnet. I'm sure people are wondering, like, can they get access to this document? So the answer is yes. And in fact, there is a draft version of this in a PR sitting in GitHub right now. I am going to update this based on feedback from the internal team in the next, literally today, and then add in very detailed description of the incentives as well as the challenges to this as well. So here's a spreadsheet that calls out very clearly what the different types of challenges are going to be that are available for people, what the incentives are going to be depending on the timeline. So if you're a provider, if you're looking to participate in setting up a provider, depending on the type of GPU that you set up, you'll get incentives, and depending on how fast you do it, whether you do it in the first week, second week, or third week, the incentive would be higher or lower. And then similarly for these benchmarking tasks as well as AI model deployment tasks, there would be incentives associated with that. I'm working with Cheng and our finance team right now to finalize this, and I'm hoping it'll be finalized this morning. And then once that is done, I will update this PR with any feedback from the team, and also link this spreadsheet, which is going to be open to everyone to look at. So you can expect to see this in the next day. And I said a lot of things there about the GPU project and the incentivized testnet. So I want to see if there's any questions or thoughts or concerns, anything at all from the community before we talk about the other projects here.
How this stacks up against the previous testnets for, I was there for all the testnets. I think this is the most comprehensive one we've done so far. And, for context, we did about, let's say like 3 testnets in total. One was pre-launch, 2 are pre-launch, and 1 was post-launch. The pre-launch ones allowed us to recruit validators and really fulfill the objective with hyper precision and very, very good satisfactory results. With By doing the testnet, we were able to launch the chain. We had about 150 validators even when we launched the chain, because we were able to distribute AKT to users, that that were that knew the system pretty well and knew how to use the system. So we're using that experience to design a testnet that's more comprehensive, much better. And we're doing this in a little different here from previous experiences. Is we have sort of like two personas, right? 2 different personas. One persona is the providers with GPUs. It turns out that a lot of folks in the crypto ecosystem with GPUs. And they understand how to handle GPU crypto and whatnot. And then the second persona is AI developers that don't have no experience dealing with Web3 or crypto systems. So the real I think goal is to understand the friction points we'll potentially face when we launch the mainnet, understand how to solve them, and do so at scale, right? So we're with the current, we're going to go massive with the testnet. Of course, that's going to create like a lot of like quote unquote awareness, within both the decentralization as well as the non-decent AI ecosystems. But real goal is to test this out, stress test the system, and test the engagement model and the user journeys as well, as to what kind of friction points we'll identify and solve them, so that we can have a very successful mainnet. The code itself is ready, as far as I know, to launch a mainnet. Of course, the testnet is going to unveil a few bugs and issues that we'll potentially fix, but the code works right now, right? So it's mainnet ready. And I'm super excited. For last time we did this, we created the Akash, awesome Akash, repo, right? Awesome Akash repo was born out of a testnet, and we have hundreds of applications there. So we're expecting similar levels of engagement with this as well. So it turns out, for some reason, these incentivized testnets always come right before a bull market. So last time we did this was right before the bull market kicked off, and that gave us quite a lot of exposure. And so it's correlation, not causation, but correlation wise, you can definitely put some pattern recognition there. So I'm super excited.
Awesome. That's really cool. Thanks for that perspective, Greg. Any other thoughts from anyone? Arthur, feel free to jump in. Cheng, anybody else want to talk? Anything that I missed about the GPU testnet or GPUs in general? Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah. Sorry if just a quick question. If the testnet will be successful, what are the added to implement it into the mainnet? July, August. I mean,
you
Yeah.
mean when this testnet is sorry, go on.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say that, basically the tentative timeline is we would shoot to start the testnet either on the 5th of June or the 12th of June. And then the testnet would go on for about 3 weeks. So with that time frame in mind, and assuming that we don't find any huge issues through the testnet, I think it is safe to say that a mainnet upgrade should happen in the next 45 to 60 days, approximately.
wow, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Go ahead, Andrew Mello.
Hi, guys, and everybody. Great to hear the progress on GPUs. Just to confirm, this second testnet is going to have the new version that is going to allow for a provider to build with a variety of GPUs in that provider.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
And just to clarify, it's going to be this. It's the same testnet that we have right now, the same network. It's just this is going to be an incentivized testnet. And yes, Arthur is actively working on supporting GPU attributes, which will let tenants select a specific GPU model within the same provider, if it's a mixed GPU model provider.
Okay, then I will set aside time then for that second testnet to get involved and start some multi GPU provider builds.
Amazing, yeah. And I'll have this PR today out for that describes the testnet as well as the incentives. So if you have any feedback, please feel free to jump in and submit your feedback to it as well.
Excellent, thank you.
So, cool. If there's nothing else to add or comment on the GPU portion, we can move on to the next set of projects here. So moving on to client libraries, I know Luna and the Quasar team have been working pretty actively on this, and I know you've submitted a proposal as well. I know there was some discussion between Arthur and Luna on this. I don't know, Luna, if you want to give an update, if you prefer that I do, either one is fine.
There's no major updates on this. We are still working. The base features are there, so the spec, it is now compliant with the spec. Now we are just evolving it and adapting it to the newest code, because we are working on top of the release candidates. So and we will only so we are just aiming for whenever the new mainnet is available, because we are using the latest models on the APIs.
Yep.
Yeah, no major updates, just the discussions. We will have a long discussion, and I think that's really cool. So yeah, just waiting on that as well.
Awesome. Thank you for the update. The next one here is content moderation. So, we have had a couple of PRD and a couple of API specs for this. And the Plato team has been actively working on implementing one part of this. I know they had to put it a little bit on pause. And I should have mentioned this in the GPU thing, but the Plato team is also going to add support for GPU, setting up a GPU provider using Plato. And they showed us kind of a early demo of that yesterday in the provider's SIG as well. But yeah, so that's kind of taken a little bit of a higher priority than content moderation, but I think this is still on the radar. Correct, Deval or the Plato team? Go ahead, Jigar.
Yes, that's correct. We are like, that's our next thing that we are like continuing on our work, because we worked on it a little bit and then we had to put a little bit pause because we wanted to put GPU support priority, right? So, and good news is we just deployed to our production. Now, like everybody can go and become a provider in a GPU testnet using that GPU, existing GPU, if they have like one server.
Very cool. And this is going to be a huge, it's going to be huge for the testnet, because the phase one of this is going to be setting up providers. And so having an easy way to do that using Plato is going to go a long way in increasing the number of providers we get on the network. Go ahead, Andrew.
I just had a little update on content moderation. I know I'm backlogged by a couple of months on updating one of the repositories we had set up that basically needs the tooling that I built to go on there. It's a little bit different than the API. Again, this is something that a provider with Kubernetes knowledge could simply deploy onto their cluster that could then start monitoring pods and executing against them if it finds, bad matches. So I will get that updated, I think, in the next week here. I will try to get that online.
Awesome. I recall there was a conversation where we had agreed on creating, I think, a repository under Akash network. Was
Yes.
that the case still? Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Adam created it and gave me access. I just need to get around to pushing the code, but yep, I will get that updated. And once we do, it'd be good to make an announcement on that because we will be able to support, potentially enterprise workloads with this, because you could monitor, everything from a text file to an image to a video, as I demoed on our working group. So
Amazing. Very cool. Thank you for the update. Awesome. The next one's Economics 2.0. And I know Adam Bosnich has had a fair amount of work on this side. Adam, I don't know if you wanted to give an update on the take rate stuff that you're almost ready to merge in.
Yeah, it's about ready. Thanks to Archer's help last night, fixed kind of the last unit test that was breaking. So I think today I can merge it in. It's going well. We still need to do some kind of comprehensive testing. I need to find other test nets to test it with. So there's a whole piece there that we need to figure out, but it'll be part of this test net, maybe kind of more in the background than the GPU stuff, but it should be there.
Awesome. Yeah, this is huge because we've been talking about Economics 2.0 for a while. So it'd be awesome to get the first piece of that in place. If anybody has questions about what that is or is curious about it, definitely check out Economics 2.0 and the specs in there, the PRD that Cheng has written. Go ahead, Cheng, and then Andrew after that.
Yeah, the pace of which this is, I think, exceeded my expectations as far as where this is going to land in the test net. So hadn't conceived of it, but wanted to submit for the committee for discussion, which is, should we also then, I know we wanted to finalize the incentives and everything like that, but should we contemplate and think about some incentives for around testing, right, like tasks in this particular testnet, if we do anticipate that stable payments as well as take rates will be ready. I'm not sure what there will be other than, requesting, submitting, bids with USDT, for example, or USDC, excuse me.
Yeah, I was thinking about that a little bit. I think there's two considerations. So on the one hand, it's nice to be able to test that, but I think the flip side of it is two things. One is, if we wanted to add that in, then it'll probably delay the testnet by a week or two. And then the second is, I think in order for people to really be able to use it, we would need work on the client side to make sure that the user experience is good. So while the pieces are in place, there still needs to be work done on the client sides to make sure that all of this makes sense to people. Because just to give an example, one of the things is today when you look at a specific type of currency, whether it's USDC or something else, it shows up as a hex value, and it's not very human readable. And so there needs to be work on the client side to map that into a more human readable format. And so I think, we should talk about it, but I think generally my thinking was we just hold for now, and maybe we can do a separate testnet for it. But go ahead, Greg.
Sorry, so would you like to update the state to implementation? Because we got started in two different.
Yes.
Or maybe break it into separate projects. I don't know how you want to call it, but I think Econ 2.0 is a gigantic epic. It's done quite a lot of work over the years, right? So.
Yep, makes sense. We'll create a separate line item here for the implementing take rates in the core product, and we'll change that to implementation. Sounds good. Cool.
So there's stake rates and multi-currency.
Yep.
Both meaning, yeah, okay.
Awesome. Yeah, made a note of that. We'll do that. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, just again a quick question. Will the take rates will be implemented before the GPU mainnet go live, or this is go after, and we will have still to incentivize the GPU providers?
Yes. So the thinking right now is that this code would get merged in to be part of the mainnet upgrade that includes CPUs, but we wouldn't specifically be testing it in the testnet. So the testnet would be primarily focused on GPU providers and AI model deployment onto those GPU providers. So we wouldn't be testing this specifically. I think it would make sense for us to potentially consider another testnet at some point once we have the client side changes implemented as well. But Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the way I think about it, I think that aligns with Anil too. Is just I consider it like an alpha release or a beta release, even where like, you know, the chain component of it is out there and it's usable, but we're not really promoting it as a workflow right now because there's so many other pieces that need to also be implemented to make it usable in the way we all expect it to be usable.
Good, Arthur.
Yeah, just to, so for example, it will be supported in the chain. However, provider part of the multi-currency and other things will be off. And the testnet, so we will definitely need to separate testnet for that. One of the reasons, for example, it needs we need to run multiple testnets like Osmosis or whatever to support all the bridges. So it's going to be slightly more complicated to put that all into the GPU.
Makes sense. Sounds good. Adam, did you have anything else? I see your hand is still up.
No, I forgot to unraise my hand.
Sounds good. Cool. And I actually just realized we did have an item for stable payments and settlement. So I'll just move this up and change it to implementation. So it was like definition, change that to implementation. I don't want to go through all of these in the interest of time because we're at about at the half mark right here. So I know there's a lot of work happening for hackathons and event planning. I don't know, Adam, was if you want to give an update on any of those things.
Hey guys, for sure. So on the event side, the big upcoming events that we're going to be participating in, it's the first time we're doing this. We're bringing some insiders to Paris and Berlin for some Cosmos and Ethereum upcoming events this July. It's the first time we're having community representatives representing Akash both on stage and off stage. So I'm really excited for that. So there's planning underway and we have the insiders selected for who will be attending those events. On that note, Q3 budget proposal is under review. I believe I sent it over to Chang. It's on his desk to review. The idea is putting that up for a governance vote. It's essentially pre-approved from the first event's budget governance proposal we put on, but we want to do it quarterly just to update the community on where the budget is and how things are moving along in terms of our event presence. And so the next big kind of upcoming event to kind of think about is Messari Mainnet, which is part of the Q3 budget proposal. So once that's all approved, we'll start working on, and once these July events are over, we'll start working on what our presence could look like for Messari Mainnet. So unless there's any questions on the events, I could talk quickly about the hackathon as well. Looks good. Cool. And yeah, and the hackathon. So as to not coincide with GPU testnet that Anil's been kind of spearheading, we updated the timeline for when our hackathon will kick off. This is kind of the first community kind of owned hackathon that we're putting on, so I'm pretty excited about it. But the rough dates on when these will be starting is we're going to have registration kicking off on June 26th. It'll be a 2-week registration process just to kind of promote the event and getting more people involved. And then the official kickoff will be on July 10th. The event will run for a month, and then we'll announce winners in early August. So planning for that is well underway. We have 4 different Akash insiders that are participating and supporting putting together that event. So big shout out to those folks. And yeah, all systems are go for that hackathon. So that's it. Any questions? Cool.
Awesome. I haven't been super closely involved with this, but I just want to say it seems like it's super well organized in terms of both, the way the governance proposals are put together, all the community engagement. I'm just super excited to have like Akash being represented in these 4 or 5 different conferences by people outside of the core team. That's awesome. Really, really cool.
Yep. All the shout outs go to the insiders and the community that are participating. So snaps to those guys.
Question. So this hackathon is all virtual, or is there any physical component?
It's all virtual. Since this is the first one we're doing, I kind of want to see how it all comes together. I'm expecting it to be successful, but I wanted to kind of just run it, and then as soon as it's over, we can review and start to think about what a potential next hackathon could look like, and potentially having like an offline element.
And how long is the hackathon running?
We're going to run it for a month. So I was initially going to be doing it in total, like registration and the hackathon for 1 month total. So 2 weeks registration, 2-week hackathon. But our partner, we're working with Dora Hacks. We're actually using their service for free, which is great. So that budget can go back to the hackathon. They recommended from previous hackathons they've running 2 weeks of registration and 1 month for the virtual hackathon, just so it gives people that are maybe new to the ecosystem a chance to kind of dig into the documentation, ask for resources, support, get their questions answered, stuff like that. So in total, it'll be about a month and a half, 2 weeks registration, 1 month virtual hackathon.
Awesome.
Amazing. Cool. Out of the rest of the items here, I think I just wanted to touch upon 2 things, unless people want to talk about other ones. So dockside migration was one, and then the other was provider attributes, because I know there was a couple of questions about it. So I don't know if there's anybody that can speak about dockside migration and where that is, any blockers, anything else at all. If not, yeah, go ahead.
That will be a part of the demo today. So as a part of the doc site migration, Luna will just be giving a demo on the work that he and his team have been doing along with FIG documentation. So that'll be coming up after this.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot. You did mention it up front. Okay, cool. So I'll hold off on that. I'll just do a quick update on provider attributes. So I know Luna and a couple of other people have asked about provider attributes on Discord. So just to give you a quick update, there is a spec that is in a Google Doc that's internally shared right now. I'm just trying to get some internal reviews before I put it in GitHub. But I'm totally happy to open it up to a few people. If you're interested, just message me on Discord or any other way that you can, and I'll be happy to just share that document with you if you want to look at it ahead of time and offer your suggestions to it as well. But the plan is to try to get this into GitHub as soon as we have the testnet thing figured out, and then take reviews publicly on that. Awesome. Any other things anybody want to bring up on the project side before we jump to the demo from Luna and team? Cool. I'll take that as a no. And I guess, Tyler, I'll hand it back to you and Luna to take us through the demo.
Excellent. All right. At a very high level, before I again hand it over to Luna, out of SIG documentation, there's been a number of conversations that have been happening at the monthly meetings. I know it's been a big thought when we moved to the open framework that, again, with the website being open, the docs which were previously open, we want to make everything more open, and we wanted to migrate from Gitbook to Hugo. Quasarch, led by Luna and their team, took on that effort out of SIG documentation after a spec was created and started working on that migration, which focused on taking all the documentation the Overclock Labs team, as well as others, have created. Big shout out to Scott Carruthers, who's done a lion's share of that effort. So take that existing documentation and migrate it over from, again, Gitbook over to Hugo, and then do some design and structural optimizations as we look to make the user experience slightly more optimized on the docs.akash network side. So again, this is being run locally right now. They're just looking for feedback from the steering committee as well as the community, and then there's some plans that can be talked about how we continue on towards, again, pushing these towards this new documentation 2.0 to docs.akash.network. So that's just a real high level of where we are or where we've been, and then I'll pass off to Luna to talk about the demo and what all the work that they've been doing.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. I think I don't have permission to share my screen. Maybe that's something you need to give me.
Okay, you should.
I just made you a co-host, Luna. You should be able to now.
Okay, yeah, now I have it. Thank you. All right, let me find it. Okay. Let me know when you are able to see my screen.
Yes. Oh, it just went way up. Now it's back.
Okay, yeah. All right. So I'll be walking through the new documentation 2.0 and the structure. Feel free to interrupt me anytime you have a question. I can quickly address it. And just a little disclaimer: not all documentation is migrated yet, so you might see some the pages that have TBD or under development, like text. That relates to documentation that hasn't yet been migrated. So yeah, the new documentation, you start right off with this landing page. So this is the landing page where users will land once they go to docs.akash.network. And here we offer 3 different journeys for users, which is the normal deployment journey. That if you click, you'll go to a getting started page. You have the journey to become a provider, which if you click, you'll go to guides on how to build providers, and then the journey to build the validated node. Then a couple of call to actions and just simple footer with all the social links, privacy policy, and that's on the official website. Nothing major. This is the landing page. Here on top, you have a search bar, a bunch of also social links that will be available throughout the documentation. So this top bar will always be present. If you go to documentation here, you start going into the documentation per se, and you start with the overview. So we offer 3 kind of, not really journeys, but kind of 3 groups. I chose those so they can be different once we release. So this is just for kind of demo purposes, but if you agree it makes sense, we can keep them or just change to whatever we feel makes more sense, or add more if you want. So yeah, we have like guides. So if for instance I click take me there, I'll get a list of all the documentation that has the category of guides. I can, if I want to, for instance, learn about the blockchain side of Akash or everything that's related to blockchain technology, I can just click there and I'll get a list of all the documentation that has the tag blockchain. The same for architecture. So if I want to know how Akash is distributed across the globe, how it works, I can just get there and I'll get everything with the category architecture. So which is really cool. From a layout perspective, on the right side, we have quick navigations for opening issues, editing the page, so creating a pull request to edit this page if we find something wrong. We have like a print entire section which gives us a print friendly interface of the documentation of a section. Creating a project issue, this would basically link to the support repo, so on and so forth. And then you have the tags, the categories, so overall familiar structure. On the top side, the documentation also supports multi-languages. So currently we only have English. I left on the drop down the Norse just for reference and just to show that it works. If I click it, I have no documents, then it shows me nothing. But if I add under this directory the same files but translated, it would show me those files. This is exactly the same as Kubernetes does it. And I think it works great. It's great for contributions, great for internationalization, works really well. And yeah, here an index where I can quickly go to the different sections. Going back to the Akash network landing page for the documentation, I can start my journey and click on deploy on Akash, and I'll be given a choice for my deployment, so how I want to deploy on the Akash network. I haven't currently migrated the console documentation, but I have migrated the CloudMos. So if I'm interested in deploying with CloudMos, I can just click deploy, and I'll go straight to a guide on the documentation on how to deploy using the CloudMos IO tool. Same for Terraform, which is not done yet. This one doesn't currently exist. It's something that needs to be developed. I also have the CLI and the client libraries, which go to the developer portion of the documentation, where client libraries documentation will live, or at least links to the official documentation for those. And yeah, those are kind of the journeys for deployments. Become a provider goes to documentation about becoming a provider, or at least the start of it, and build using Elm. There will be a section on operators, so the different solutions. While we are on this page, code blocks are copyable, so we can just click and copy, same functionality as before. Some of them don't work yet because it's just something that's missing on the code block thing, but it will be available on everywhere where it makes sense. And yeah, the overall structure is the one that we defined in the spec, with the difference that I now, based on feedback, introduced the deployments section. I think it could be moved upwards. It's open for discussion, or maybe even like over here in the middle, if we want them to follow like this getting started, then learning the concepts, then the features, and then the architecture being the deeper level that you can go in terms of technicalities. Overall it's just moving where we think it makes sense, but the section is here and will have all the different deployment methods on Akash. But yeah, the structure then is what I mentioned. It's getting started, where we kind of have like the environment setup, how we can get developer funding, and all that stuff that's already in the current documentation. Then we have concepts. These go deeply into concepts that we need to kind of understand the documentation well and communicate with others about Akash. So bids, leases, what are providers, what is the DSEC, and there's a typo here, the GSEC, the OSEC, what are validator nodes, what's the SDL, what are RPC nodes. So this stuff that we kind of need to know if we want to effectively communicate with the community and communicate about the Akash network. Then we have the network features, so authorized spend, deployment shell, IP leases, GPUs. So this is documentation on that, on those major features, persistent storage as well, and yeah. Then about the architecture, just to briefly go into what are containers, what are Kubernetes, what's the Akash node, what's the Akash provider, its components. So it talks about basically everything regarding the Akash network's architecture. Then guides. We haven't migrated all of the guides, but here's one an example, the Akash provider checkup. Then the developers documentation, as I mentioned, this will be the Scott's deep dive documentation, kind of, that's available on another website, but it will be, I think, makes sense to be here. I think that's the plan. And also client libraries documentation or links to external documentation for those. So anything for developers that want to build on and integrate with the Akash network. Then provider documentation. This is, I already briefly showed. So how to build with Elm, audited attributes, enable persisting storage, enabling policies, and all the kind of documentation regarding providers. We then have validators. Currently, I think this is only the only documentation there is about validators. This is the full guide on how to run a validator node. And yeah, now the last section that I added is deploying with CloudMos and Terraform and CLI, and soon the console as well. I think this is everything about the Akash Network 2.0 documentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Luna. I would just say, I know we're running up on time. If anybody has any initial feedback, we can take a couple of minutes to talk about it now. Otherwise, if anybody has any follow-up feedback, please put it in SIG documentation Discord channel or come to some of the SIG documentation monthly meetings. There will also be another working group session added for Docs 2.0 because I know that, again, Scott, Luna, and others have talked about migration paths. So I know that we have to do at some point stop creating new documentation so that we can get to a point where Luna can migrate everything over without, again, constantly playing catch up. And then talk about a strategy on implementing it as docs.akash.network. One more quick shout out before I pass off to Chang is if anybody else wants to contribute to making documentation, editing documentation, just supporting the creation. I know that Scott has been doing it a significant amount for a long time by himself. And again, members of the community that want to contribute in any way, please feel free to contribute to documentation if you have the ability. Go ahead, Chang.
Yeah, just in terms of timeline, okay, if we don't have it yet, is there like a rough estimate as far as when we'd want to push this live? Amazing work, by the way.
So the goal of today was to get additional thoughts from the steering committee, and that will help SIG documentation, the working group, figure out what next steps are. So if there seems to be a positive direction on where this is going from the group today, then it would be significantly less time than if we need to alter some things. Go ahead, Adil.
Yeah, just want to echo what Cheng said. Amazing work. Thanks so much for taking this on, Luna and team. What is the best way for people to submit feedback or specific, changes in the content? Is it going to be like a GitHub PR where they can do this, or should it just be in Discord channels?
Currently, the repo is closed. It will be transferred to the Akash organization once the migration is complete. I don't think it makes sense for now to create content yet because it's a full migration from what's currently available. But then, as for contributions, I think I didn't mention, but contributing to this now will be very, very easy. It's just really MD files in the correct place, and everything just goes to the right place and displays correctly. It's kind of magical. It's really cool. And even with the internationalization, if that's one step that we want to take one day, it will be really, really, really easy and great for. So this will be a great starting point for any community member that's looking to contribute. Usually it's where contributions start. It's like you want to contribute, there's documentation to be written, typos to be fixed, or documentation to be translated, and that's a great place to start.
Luna, I think before I pass off to Greg, I think Anil was specifically asking if somebody has feedback, are they able to access this doc? I know it's locally hosted right now, but is there a place where people can access and leave any comments if they do have any comments on things that should be updated or changed?
So there's I think it's akash/docs.quasar.cloud. But yeah, I have a dev environment. I'll upload the latest version there, and I'll just spread the link, and you can give feedback on the SIG channel.
Just want to say, phenomenal job. I've been wanting this for however long. It's amazing. So my question was on like, well, how do I start giving feedback? Of course, we have some suggestions in the look and feel, but I guess this is the website. So I'm going to play around with it. And also at some point, we'd love to merge this into the primary website, right, Akash? So
yeah, that's the plan. We just have to make sure that the migration is done and that all the changes that folks from the steering committee and other folks community have are implemented, and then we will migrate this to docs.akash.network.
No, under Akash.network.
Oh, the repo.
No. Under the Akash main repo, right? So we're not going to have a separate sort of subdomain. It's better for SEO. It's better for a lot of things.
Okay, we'll talk offline about that just so I understand correctly. Does anyone else have any questions related to the demo that Luna just gave? Okay, cool. I'll pass it back to Anil because I know he wants to talk about some of the discussion topics. So Anil, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. And I'm just going to share my screen really quick. I just remembered there's another topic that we should talk about. And this was kind of going back to what I said initially, is we always end up having a few discussions around proposals. So I noticed that Zach Gao is on the call as well. So I noticed this morning that Zach submitted a proposal for essentially an open source indexer for Akash. And I just wanted to call out, number one, thank you for the effort of putting this together, Zach. And then I also wanted to get people's attention to it. So if you have a chance, look at it, submit any feedback or questions to Zach in the discussions. And I don't want to put you on the spot, Zach, but if there's anything you want to talk about as far as this proposal goes, or sort of what the plan is next in terms of getting this from a draft state to a full state, this is your opportunity. If not, totally fine if you're not prepared and you want to do it next time. I don't know, Zach, if you're listening and you're interested in talking about this. Yeah, I guess Zach is probably distracted with something else. But yeah, just wanted to call that out. So definitely take a look at it if you haven't taken a look at it yet. I'm sure they're going to flesh it out a little bit more in the next couple of days. I think the thing that's most exciting to me about this is, number one, they've built similar things for other projects. So there's a link to a dashboard that they've built for Secret, which is another Cosmos project, and for Jackal, which is also another Cosmos project that they're working on. And then the second thing is they're planning to open source all of this. So it'll be completely open source and anybody can contribute to it as well. So yeah, just wanted to call that out. I'll stop presenting, and if Zach has heard this and wants to say a couple of words, great. If not, we can wrap up for the day.
Okay. Terrific. Well, again, thank you all for joining the steering committee monthly meeting number 5. Again, if you have any additional questions or comments, feel free to make those in Discord. Thank you, Luna, for the presentation, and the demo rather, on Docs 2.0. And again, thank you all in the community for all the hard work that you're doing across many different areas and projects. Look out for updated plan on the GPU incentivized testnet coming soon. But again, I hope everyone has a great rest of the day, and thank you so much for participating today. Notes will be available soon, so look out for those on GitHub. But again, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.